Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video I'd like to do a quick overview of the instrument panel in my 32 Ford. If you watched last week or haven't watched last week, you need to go back and watch last week. I kind of did a inside tour of the interior and all that about the car, but today I'd like to focus on the instrument panel and all the gauges and what everything does and all that. So let me get the camera set up here and I'll get you guys in there and we'll take a look. Okay everyone, we're in the car. So you have to forgive me for this if my fingers get in the way when I'm pointing and doing stuff. I just can't think of a better way to do this, especially being by myself out here filming this. But I wanted to get you guys in the car so you actually see what it's like up front here and kind of go over what everything does and why some things are here that shouldn't be and why some things work like they do, and also why some things don't work like they do. So just looking around, pretty simple. You know, you got to keep this in perspective. This car is just celebrated its 90th birthday. I mean, this car is 90 years old. I mean, she's 10 years away from 100. So yeah, there's not a whole lot going on in here, but you got to think how it was back then and the time period that this car come out new. I mean, this is pretty technical. So let's just get the elephant in the room out of the way, so to speak. The CB. The CB was put in here by my grandfather. My grandparents used this car to go on trips, and they went with a Model A group. They had a bunch of old Model A's, and I mean, even though this was a B, they let him into the, my grandpa always laughed. He's like, he really shouldn't have been into the group because he was a Model B, but because, you know, he had the 4-cylinder engine and everything, they let him in, and which I don't think it was as big a deal as what he made it out to be, but it just always tickled him that he was a Model B in a Model A group. But the reason he put this in there is, you know, you got to think back in the 70s, 80s, you know, no cell phones. So I think they all put CBs in their cars so they could talk to each other and communicate, you know, because these cars did break down from time to time and they had little mishaps that they had to take care of. Like I said in past videos, they would pack up a bunch of parts, every part they could think of that they think they would probably need or had a possibility of needing. I mean, I'm talking belts, starters, fuel pumps, light bulbs, manifolds, you know, exhaust manifolds, carburetors, even carburetors, parts, gaskets. I mean, they took everything because they never knew what they were going to need. And between everybody in the group, you know, somebody probably had a part that would fit somebody else's car. So they used this a lot. And then the ladies, my grandmother, they would talk back and forth to the other ladies, and then, you know, they'd decide if somebody had to, you know, a pit stop or gas, you know, they could communicate and pretty much be able to stay together. So that's kind of why this got put in. I'll show you here. This thing does still work. Turns on, functions. You'll see if I squawk it, the needle moves. If I press the button, there is a speaker up here installed. I do have the antenna for it. I don't have the antenna on the car. I keep it off, but I do have it here, and I can put it on and use it if I wanted to. Still works. All the channels change, everything. Next, that wasn't original to the car. It was added on this 12-volt power outlet. Now I can use it to charge my cell phone if I need to. But I think the main reason he put this in here is to have a little portable heater that could sit down here on the floor for my grandma to keep her warm if they were on a spring or, early morning, whatever, just to take the edge off, in the morning. Because, you think about it, this car, even in that time period, I mean, it didn't have any heat, no air. It's got a couple vents for airflow, but that's cold air in the morning. If you were out and about or a cold day, hot day, you had some airflow in here, but no air conditioning. So he mainly used that for a little plug-in heater you put on the floor. So moving on from there, we have the choke. If I can do this in the camera, not mess it up. So you have a choke. So when you start it, you actually have to pull out the choke to start. And once it fires, obviously you push this back in. But something else that this choke button does on this old car that I don't know if Model A is doing or not, I really don't know. But on this car, it controls your mixture. You actually turn this towards the driver. So I guess counterclockwise, and it'll make your mixture more rich for like a cold start, getting it warmed up. And then as it warms up and you're getting ready to go, you would turn it back. And it's basically just done the way I was always taught to do it, was how the engine sounds when it's running. And it'll run rough, and maybe I'll give a demonstration of that here after we get done with the tour. But yeah, it controls your mixture, and you got to set that right. And then, if you're driving down the road or whatever, sometimes you do have to adjust it a little bit to make it run better and run right. She'll spit and sputter every once in a while, and you got to just adjust it a little bit. It's nothing too tedious or too hard to do, and a lot of times you don't have to do anything. She runs good. Next, obviously, is the fuel gauge. This is not the fuel gauge of the 32. This was added on. I don't know whatever happened to the fuel gauge. As far as I can remember, this gauge has always been in this car. And unfortunately, as long as it's been in this car, it has not worked. It has not worked. Actually, when you turn the power onto the car, that needle bumps to full, and that's where it stays. So I'm not quite sure what's going on with that. That's actually something that I've actually thought about doing maybe later, but I know it's going to be a job to get to it, but actually get a original 32 fuel gauge and get it installed. But you can actually buy ones that are kind of just for show. It's actually just the gauge itself. It does not work, but it looks like it's got gas in it, and it's just for show. I may do that too, because it's not a big deal running it without a gas tank. I usually check it, and my grandpa checked it with a paint stick that you get to stir paint when you go to Lowe's, and they give you a stick to stir paint. That's how I check to see how much gas I got in it. And I usually just run it a little while, and I try to keep it, at least half or above full. That way you don't have to worry about it. But if I was going on a long trip, I would really have to use that and kind of watch my gas mileage and how many miles I went, because I don't have a fuel gauge. Next, moving on, the speedometer. Now, this is correct for the year. This is probably not well, I know it's not the original speedometer. I do have another speedometer, a spare part. That may be the original one. I know at one time when I was a kid, I remember specifically him taking this out and sending it off to get rebuilt. So I think I've got a rebuilt one. This one does work. The mileage, everything works on it. They're not, you can still get them rebuilt. And I think you can still buy new ones. But anyway, that's the story behind that. But yeah, this works, and this is period correct for the car. It is not a remanufactured one, let's put it that way. These are actually, this is an actual 32 speedometer gauge. Okay, next is the amp gauge. As far as I know, this has always been in here. As far as I know, this is original. I mean, I wasn't, obviously I wasn't even born yet when this car was being restored by my grandfather, so, but as long as I've been alive, and I'm going to be 49 this year, these gauges have been in this car. So, and this does work. When I'm driving down the road, when I get to a certain speed or whatever, it flips over to charge, and you can tell it's charging the battery. And then when you can tell when it's done, it backs off and goes back down to 0. So as far as I know, that works. Okay, next we have the throttle. Now I don't use this, but it is still hooked up. You guys can see, I'll zoom in down here, point. See that line going down to the gas pedal? So if I pull this throttle out towards me, that will make that gas pedal go down. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but it is moving. I'm not sure what that's for. He, to my knowledge, never used it. I'm thinking for maybe warming it up. If you wanted to have a little bit more, you know, throttle, you could have it, you know, idling a little higher while it's warming up. Would be my only guess of why they would need it. It may be some of the original type starting feature. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look into that, but I'm not real sure about that. If anybody knows, please leave a comment and let me know, because I really don't know. I just know it does work, but never use it. So next is, we're getting to the steering wheel part of the car. You have a key. I do have a key, and I have the original key. The original key for this car is, here's the key. And that key goes in like that. So next, it's hard to see. Get you guys down here to where you can see it better. It has a start. This is not hooked up. He changed this. I think when he changed it from a 6-volt system to a 12-volt system. As far as I know, as long as I've, same thing with everything else, that I've never seen him use that. He just has it there because it's part of the car. And moving on here, this toggle switch right here, this is another add-on that's not original to the car, but this is the electronic fuel pump. And the reason this is on here, this car has a mechanical fuel pump. It runs on a mechanical fuel pump that pumps fuel to the carburetor. It runs off the engine. But mechanical fuel pump is all the way up towards the radiator of the car, you know, on the engine block. And then it has to suck fuel all the way from the back gas tank all the way up to the carburetor. So I think he added this to just help ease the amount of work that the starter and the fuel pump had to do to be able to start the car. So he added this on. I'll flip it on here and you can hear it. And it's just to basically just prime the line, get fuel up to the mechanical fuel pump before you start it. So listen here. And that's all you need to do. And it's ready to choke and start. So moving on now, we're at the steering wheel. This car does have turn signals. I'm sure this was not an original part of the car. It does have turn signals, left and right. Got extra markers on the car up front, the orange, marker lights for up front, but the tail lights also do blink and everything. This all works. I'm sure it was just added for a safety feature when they went on their tours and stuff. You have the horn here, and you have this dial right here. This thing right here is for the headlights. So if you turn that on, the headlights come on. You got high beam, low beam, and off. And that turns the light on the interior lights too. If it'll be able to see it on the camera. That does turn on. And you can see the lights up front when they turn on. There's your high beam and your low beam. And all the lights work. And then you have this ginormous steering wheel that I can hardly get in the frame of the camera. This car does not have power steering, so you need all this wheel when you're driving it down the road and trying to turn and everything. Let's see what next. Obviously this car is a stick shift. This is a 3-speed transmission. You got first, second, third, and reverse. So up, that is reverse. Down is first, second, and third. That's your top speed. I do not have to double clutch when I shift. I do have to. I don't know if it's synced or not. I don't know how that really works. All I know is I cannot shift fast like you would if you drove a kind of like a modern, I guess, standard shift car. But I kind of have to wait, and it's more of a feel thing when I'm pushing in the clutch and I'm shifting. When I get to a certain RPM, when I let off, I've kind of got to go to neutral and just do a slight pause and then go up into second, and the same when I go into third. And then this thing is geared very, very low. I mean, I could put this in first gear and without touching the gas, if everything's running right and everything, perfect situation, I could let off the clutch and it would take off on its own and just kind of creep along almost like a granny gear. But you got your clutch pedal. You got your clutch pedal here. Brake. And the gas pedal. And this little guy right here that my toe is pointing at, this is what you actually, this pedal, I guess they call it a spoon pedal, is very touchy. So when you're driving this, and when you learn how to drive this, you actually rest your foot on this little knob, and then when you're giving it gas, I'm actually rolling my foot over and to accelerate. It takes a little bit to get used to. I hardly ever take my foot off of this kickstand, but if I'm going up a steep hill or something and I want to, if I want to get it to the floor, I'll do it. But as soon as I'm up, I put it back on the stand. And the reason I do that, if you're trying to drive this without this, it's hard to do. It shakes you all over the place. It's very difficult. I mean, I'm not saying it can't be done, but it just makes life so much easier. Just roll and just kind of roll your ankle and push down at the same time when you're driving. So that's a little feature. That's pretty cool. That's not normal. that you don't see every day. This guy right here, that's your emergency brake. If you want to set the emergency brake, get up here and reach it. Set your emergency brake. And you push this top button here, pull back, and release. And you got to make sure that's all the way up. And let's see what's next. Another amenity that this thing has, I mean, obviously you got your sun visors, and this little guy right up here, that's your windshield wipers. That actually runs this windshield wiper. They don't run at the same time. There is one over here for the passenger that's up underneath for the passenger to run their windshield wiper. They are not electrical powered. They're actually powered by vacuum from the engine. So the engine has to be running and have vacuum for these to work. And if I can get this started up here in a little bit, I'll kind of show you how they work, but they're pretty cool. There's not much to them, and honestly, they're absolutely worthless in the rain. They don't do too much. I'll have to throw in a, if I think about it when I'm editing this, I'll throw in, I did get caught coming home from a car show in the rain one time, and I tried turning them on, and I just laughed because I don't know how anybody could see. I mean, really, if they depended on using them, because they don't work hardly at all, but they do go back and forth. In theory, they work, but in reality, that's not really good. But they do have windshield wipers. So yeah, guys, that's basically it. It's the inside of the car. If I can get the camera set up here, I'll try to go through a startup so you guys can see how that works. See what I got to do and pull and hold out the choke. And then that button I told you I hit. She is. Not bad for 90 years old. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this little tour. Just kind of wanted to share how everything works and what certain things do and everything, and just kind of give you a little tour of my car. Hopefully I'll have a video next week. I'd like to get out and do some driving, but Tennessee's not cooperating right now. It's been cold, raining. It's raining today. It rained all day. So I don't get this out unless it's, you know, pretty nice weather. I mean, you guys obviously know that if you've been watching my videos. It's usually pretty nice out when I have her out. So hopefully we get to drive. If not, we can do, I'm thinking about doing it. I want to do an engine bay video, just kind of show you what's going on in there. You know, like I said, and going through this and why I'm doing this, I'm just showing off my car. I don't have a show car. I love my car, and it's neat, I think, and I want to share it. But, you know, please keep in mind, you know, I'm not a professional. I don't know everything about the car. I just love my car and want to show it. But, you know, the engine bay, it's not immaculate. The inside's not immaculate. The outside's definitely not immaculate, but it's neat. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe, share it. You know, people that like old stuff, you know, send this link to them, show them this video, show them my car. Thanks everybody. We'll see you next time. Oh yeah, I can't go away without doing an Aruga.